The Great Pyramid isn't just big, it's impossible. Imagine this: a dusty morning in ancient Egypt. 20 sweating workers strain against ropes, dragging a 2-ton limestone block across the sand. A thin, shaved-headed man squints at the stars, then at the shadow cast by a wooden pole. "No! Stop! Rotate it! 0.2 degrees left!" he shouts. The exhausted workers groan. One drops his rope. "It's just a stone, just drop it." The astronomer points to the sky. "That first cornerstone must be perfect. If we're off by a finger's width here, we're off by 20 cubits at the top. True north alignment within 0.05 degrees with no compass." Think about that. No GPS, no satellites, no modern tools. Yet somehow, they aligned a 6 million ton structure to true north with near-perfect precision. But what is true north anyway? True north isn't magnetic north. It's the exact point where Earth's rotation axis meets the surface, the geographic North Pole. It never changes, unlike magnetic north, which shifts over time. So how did they find it? They watched the stars. By tracking circumpolar stars, the ones that never set but circle the sky, ancient builders could mathematically pinpoint the center of that rotation, the exact axis of Earth's spin. Let that sink in. Imagine you buy yourself a telescope with no other knowledge, no Google. Maybe your dad told you something about the stars. Good luck figuring this out. To that exact degree of perfection, that first cornerstone had to be absolutely perfect because everything else builds from there. If you're off by even a tiny fraction at the base, your entire pyramid is crooked by the top. And we're not talking about building one stone. We're talking about 2.3 million blocks that all have to be level, squared, and aligned, with no mortar, while maintaining a perfectly flat base, straight sides, and a structure that doesn't twist over 146 meters in height. Picture the Giza Plateau at dawn. Thousands of workers flood onto the site like a human ant colony. The robed overseer stands on a platform, raising colored flags in patterns. Immediately, groups split off, hundreds heading to the quarry with empty sledges, others dragging loaded ones toward the ramps. Teams of stonecutters test edges with copper tools, while water bearers dash between groups. "The western corner team is off schedule," shouts a messenger. The overseer's flags change pattern, and within minutes, 50 workers redirect to the lagging section. This wasn't just muscle, it was a ballet of 10,000 to 30,000 people operating in perfectly coordinated shifts, running what amounts to a precision engineering operation without radios, computers, or even paper blueprints, for 20 years straight. And then there's the interior. That's where things go from impressive to what the actual hell. Let's go deep inside of our pyramid currently in construction. A flickering torch lights a narrow chamber in progress. The walls are smooth but raw. 3 workers sit silently. One slumps against the stone, drenched in sweat. "How long have we been in here?" one whispers. The flame dims. Another man waves at the air. "Torch is dying. So are we." The oldest stands unsteady. He points upward. It's the weight. All this stone holds the heat, traps the air. They scramble out, shoulders brushing the walls, the flame barely surviving. Then, daylight, a dry breeze. One man drops to his knees, sucking air like it's water. That was death down there. The elder doesn't respond. He's staring back at the dark tunnel behind them. That's why the shaft's already marked. 20 fingers wide. Star angle. We start it tomorrow, before the upper blocks go in. He doesn't need to explain. They planned this chamber weeks ago. They're building a space that will never be touched again. No second chances. No changes after the ceiling closes. This isn't improvisation. It's engineering with no way back. They weren't reacting. They were predicting problems that hadn't happened yet. Mr. Beast recently experienced what ancient builders knew. Deep inside the pyramid, you can barely breathe. The air gets thin. Yet somehow, these ancient engineers created narrow air shafts running from the inner chambers to the outside. Think about that leap. These people had no understanding of oxygen or respiratory systems, no chemical theory of air at all. But they figured out when you go deep into stone, people start dying. Maybe we need tiny channels to let the sky in. Let's jump forward. The pyramid is halfway complete. Stone after stone, row after row, rising higher into the sky. But something's wrong. A tense silence spreads across the ramp. At the base of the southern face, a foreman squints at a plumb line swaying in the breeze. He doesn't like what he sees. Bring the surveyor. Within minutes, a small group gathers. They stretch ropes, check angles, lay rods. Then, someone speaks. It's off. The slope's drifting. Silence. The master architect arrives, robed, sharp-eyed, exhausted. He examines the measurements, doesn't speak, just stares at the stone line, breathing through his nose. Finally, remove the top 3 layers. This section starts again. The workers freeze. Dozens of blocks, weeks of labor, gone. Tear them out. They obey. He walks off alone, hands behind his back, head down. For days he barely sleeps. He rechecks the measurements by starlight, not because anyone's watching, but because he'll know. If this corner drifts even a finger, he mutters, the peak will be crooked. The angles must meet in heaven. This wasn't just physical labor. It was obsession, paranoia, precision under pressure. Was this the vision of a single genius, a savant who saw the whole thing in his mind? Or was it a generational knowledge engine, a human CPU made of scribes, astronomers, and masons? Let's step into that room. A shaded room, no scrolls, no tools, no stone slabs of instruction. Just dust, sunlight, and a circle of men sitting in silence, thinking. One speaks softly, eyes closed, reciting angles, proportions, star cycles. Another corrects him, not with a document, but with memory. They gesture in air, draw in sand, erase, repeat. A copper rod lies nearby, not for measurement, but to visualize slope. A child watches, wide-eyed. This is their classroom. No writing, no diagrams, no second chances. Just mind to mind, day after day, until the knowledge burns itself into memory. The elder turns to the boy. Repeat it. The child begins. A shaft at 4 cubits rise for 7 run, angled to the star of the soul. The elder nods, then leans in. And one day, you will teach this to another, and you must not forget, because when the stone is placed, it cannot be taken back. This is not a workforce, it's a living equation, passed not by scroll, but by story. And somehow, it worked. The moon landing also worked. It was the pyramid project of our time. 400,000 people, over a decade of effort, an entire nation's brainpower pointed at the sky. The precision it required? Unreal. Start with a tiny error in trajectory, and you land on Mars, or nowhere. But they had correction engines. They could adjust mid-flight. The pyramid builders, no engines, no redos. They had to be perfect on the first try. And maybe most importantly, we had help. We had machines. We had early computers. We had writing, communication lines, and a foundation of knowledge built over thousands of years. They had none of that. The moon landing is hard science. The pyramid is hard magic. Both make you say, how did humans even pull that off? But one of them, we still don't fully understand. And if you still think this was just muscle and good luck, then let's go to the part of the pyramid where failure wasn't an option. A place so deep, so heavy, and so dangerous. That one mistake could have brought the entire thing crashing down. The king's chamber. It's near the core now, hidden deep inside. The chamber has been rising, layer by layer, stone by stone. Every measurement checked, every line re-verified. But today, something different is being hauled in. Not a standard limestone block, not even granite. This one is special. 70 tons. One single slab. It will span the chamber's ceiling and hold the weight of everything above it. If it cracks, everything collapses. Dozens of men surround it. Ropes strain, wooden sledges groan. A priest watches the angle of the ramp, muttering under his breath. The master builder says nothing. He just stares, his lips tight. Slow, slower. The block begins its final crawl toward the chamber, every step choreographed, every command shouted with absolute clarity. There's no margin for error, no way to replace this if it goes wrong. This isn't a prototype, it's the real thing. Inside the chamber, supporting walls are braced. The air is thick. The block slides into position, above the sacred void. No applause, no celebration, just silence. The builder walks beneath it, running his hand along the edge. He says nothing, but inside, he's breathing again. It didn't crack. It didn't buckle. It held. It still holds. And above that chamber, they added 4 more layers of massive granite beams, stacked like a giant pressure trap, designed to spread and break the load. A system so clever, it took us centuries to even realize what it was for. This wasn't just building. It was physics, architecture, stress dynamics, before anyone had names for those things. And after all that, they still weren't done. The sun rises over Giza. One last block. Not the biggest, not the hardest, just the final one. The workers guide it up slowly, carefully. No shouting, no ceremony. Their hands are blistered, their legs shake. But no one stops. At the top, the master builder is waiting. He's older now, thinner. He hasn't smiled in years. The block slides into place. Smooth, clean, perfect. Click. A sound no one will ever hear again. For a moment, there's silence. Then one man exhales. Another laughs, just once. Someone claps, and the pyramid is finished. They cheer, they cry. Some drop to their knees. A few just stand there staring up at what they did, because they know their names will be forgotten. But this will not. And now, it's done. And it will never be done again.